Today, we're going to learn declarative programming by writing our own imperative map function. In imperative programming, we specify how we want the computer to do something. Imagine a chef who asks his assistant to prepare 8 ounces of milk, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, and half a banana for him. Now imagine that the chef has a wonderful assistant and he says, "Now make me a smoothie for a customer with a sweet tooth." That's declarative programming. In declarative programming, it's the computer who worries about all the details of how something is done. We can study both sides of this coin by building and using a map function. What's a map function? Let's take a special kind of list called an array and fill it with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We could make a second array by multiplying each of those numbers by 3. That would give us 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15 in a brand new array. To generalize, a map function takes an array and performs an operation on each item of the array. It then makes a new array from each result of each operation. Can you tell yet if a map function is imperative or declarative? Now let's build our own map function. If you have a CodePen.io account, you can fork the code I write and turn it into your own thing. And if you get lost, I'll leave checkpoints for you to catch up at. You can also use a plain text editor such as Vim, Sublime, TextMate, Notepad, TextEdit, or many, many others. So now we're going to use a text editor called Sublime Text 2. Or you could follow along in CodePen or whatever editor you want to use. And today we're going to build this example in the browser. So I'm going to write a little bit of boilerplate code, or the code that's basically the minimum we have to do to get this thing going. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is type doctype HTML. What this basically does is it tells the web browser we're using that we're going to be using HTML5. And then we're going to wrap everything else in HTML tags. And this is standard in every HTML document. Everything in HTML is expressed with angle bracket tags. The HTML tag that we just wrote is an example. So is this P tag, which is for making a paragraph of text. Just like with the HTML tag, here the P tag has an opening tag and a closing tag that has the slash in it. The tag affects everything which is between the opening and closing tag. The HTML document is divided in 2 parts: the head and the body. And the body is what's going to be visibly displayed in the document. The head includes general information about the document, including the title of the document. and that's going to be what appears in the browser at the top of the document. And then all else we're going to add is the tag that lets us put our JavaScript in here, the script tag. And then we'll save as index.html. And then we'll save. And then we can look on our desktop right over here. Just open it right here. And it's empty. If we opened a new tab, it would now say map function extravaganza. So at least we had that show up, right? Everything else is just what we need to get started. If you've fallen behind at this point, you can always go to the link here and get caught up. Now that we've got our boilerplate going, let's, before we build our map function, make the page actually do something. The first thing we'll do is go to jQuery's website and bring in jQuery into our program. What this allows us to do is it's going to allow us to display things on the web page. So I'll go down here, and they actually have a piece of code that I can insert right into my code and get it working. Now I insert this in, but it's not quite right. I have to put http : before this / or else it's just not going to work. And then my actual JavaScript code I'll put right in here between the two script tags. And it's going to be very, very simple. I'm going to make a $sign and surround it with parentheses and put that in quotes. And I'm going to type body because it's going to go in the body tag, right? It's going to go right over here and between here. And so it's telling the code to select the body. The browser is a terrible mess. This is why most people use jQuery. jQuery makes it so that the mess is cleaned up and we can just get to work. Here, like a moment ago, we have a selector which goes in the quotation marks. And when we call jQuery, we're going to either type in the word jQuery or we're going to use the $sign to call jQuery, to invoke it. And jQuery also has a method that does what we want done on the thing that we're selecting. Now I'm going to put a period here and tell it to append, which means insert inside. And insert inside at the end of everything else that is inside, to be clear. And again, in quotes, I'm going to type some HTML. I'm going to make a p tag, and I'm going to type hello world, and then I'm going to make a closing p tag. And I'm going to terminate it with a semicolon, which is how every JavaScript statement is supposed to be terminated, although it's not technically required. I'm going to save. Now what I'll do is I'm going to go back to our index.html file on the desktop. I'm going to open it. And it's going to say, hello world. And so now we know that we've got it working. And if I open up my browser's inspector, which is different on different kinds of browsers, you'll see even though we didn't write this p tag in the HTML, the p tag is here in the browser. it's in the document, even though we didn't actually put it in the document, because we used the JavaScript so that it would be inserted into the document, and it's in the body after the script tag, just as we'd expect from append. Now, if you've gotten lost, here's a CodePen to bring you current. Our eventual goal is to build a map function, but let's do it in stages. So first, if we're going to have a map function, we need to actually have a function. So let's declare a variable called map and give it a value of function, and then what we can do is we can take what we've already written and place it inside of our function. The var map creates a special word which we can reuse to extract a value, such as a function or such as a number. So we could call this anything we wanted to, and I'll show you that in a bit. But right now, if we want to make this work, then we're going to have to, just like we did with jQuery when it had the parentheses up here in the body, we're going to put parentheses here, but we don't have anything to put in them right now, yet. And we're going to call this, and which is what I mean by having these two parentheses. So we're defining this here, and we're calling it here. So when I save it and open it and I refresh, it's going to do the exact same thing. But if I were to call it twice, what would happen then? We're going to get two hello worlds. And if we inspect them, they're both paragraphs. If we did this 4 times, we get 4 hello worlds. And if we did this no times, we'd have no hello worlds. But we're only going to do this 1 time. And so again, it's making our code reusable. What if we change the name, for instance, to hello? Well, then we'd have to change the name down here to hello as well, and it would still work. But we like the name map, and so we're going to stick to it. We've come to another checkpoint. But also, if you have your own CodePen account, you can fork my code and make up your own variable names. Or also, you can make the code say something different in the browser. The overarching plan here is to make a map function where we can pass an array of text items into our map function, and using our map function, we'll be able to display these in the browser. Now, before we make a true map function that does that, let's, with a minimum of code, solve this problem, and then we'll solve the problem even better. So, the first thing to do here is we're going to add another variable. But this is a variable that we pass into our map function, and it's going to be our array. So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to want to make some way to go through all the different elements that we want displayed, instead of just, having to manually type out on the body, copying this line and pasting it every time we want to do it. We want to make it so that it's automated, right? Otherwise, why even use a computer? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a few variables here inside that are only going to be visible to the function that we're writing. They're only going to be visible inside of map. Nobody outside of map will be able to see these. And one of these variables is going to be array length, and that one will let us know how long the total array is. Another variable we're going to make is going to be called current array count. And please note, I'm using very, very long names. If you were in a professional programming job, you might just use a convention like I for that. But I'm going to be very verbose for now, and later on you'll be able to rewrite this with shorter names. So we're going to add that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make a thing that is called a for loop. And it looks kind of like a function, but it's not. And what we're going to do is it's a loop, so it's going to repeat over and over and over and over and over again. So we're going to say for, and we're going to say current array count equals 0. And then we're going to say in the middle, current array count is less than array length, which, by the way, we haven't defined yet. And the last part is going to be current array count plus equals 1. You'll often see people using plus plus. I'm using plus equals 1 because it's less difficult to make mistakes on. But you could also use plus plus. Now we still need to set the array length. And the way we're going to do this is pretty simple. We're going to say array length equals array, and that's going to be pulling in the array that we've got, dot length. This is something we can do with every single array. If we simply type period and length, or request the property of length on any array, we'll get the length of that array as a number. What we can do here is cut this again, paste it in here, and we're going to modify it a little bit. So we're going to, these p tags are strings, which means they're text. They're just pure text. And JavaScript has a lot of different kinds of values in it. So you can have numerical values, but you can have pure text. So these strings are pure text. What we're going to do is we're going to say that we will surround with these p tags, right? We're going to surround with p tags our variable array, and the way we're going to get the part of the array that we want is we're going to say current array count. So let's go over this a little bit. Current array count starts at 0, right? And each item on an array, for instance, if I make an array like this, A, B, C, D, if I define an array like that, var, let's call it temporary, right? If I define an array like that, I can actually do this even a little bit better. You know what I'll do? I'm going to take it into here, and I'm going to open the console here. And so this gives me direct access to JavaScript on this web page. And so I'm going to define var temporary. And then I can call temporary. It's going to give me back ABCD, right? If I do temporary of 0, it gives me back A. I do temporary of 3, it gives me back D. 2, what do you think it's going to be? Think of the answer. It's going to be C, right? But what I've done here is I've made it so that I can go through all the items of the array. I'm going to start at 0, and then every time I go through the loop, I'm going to add 1. That's what this does right here. The loop keeps going as long as current array count is less than array length. Now that we've done this, let's see if it actually even works. Let's see what happens. Of course, we'll have to also pass into map some strings. So let's do that too. And let's just see what happens here. And here we go, ABC. As you can see, it's created 3 p tags for each of these strings. If we were to make it ABD, it'd become ABD. And if we made a number like AB3, if I save it, 3 will also be there. Forking the code pen, you can now experiment with changing the inputs to the map function. Try an array of numbers, or see what happens when you change the strings. If you're really ambitious, can you make the for loop count the array backwards? We now can go over the array and add each element to the body of our document. But what if we want to do something different? Like, for instance, what if we want to make it so that it's added backwards? So the latest thing that we add is the earliest thing that goes in the document. Or what if we want to number the different elements? We need a way to separate out what we want this to do from our map function. What we're going to do is we're going to add what's called a callback function. It's a special kind of variable that will go as a parameter of the map function itself, and will pass a function into this variable when we call the map function. And that allows us to configure it. So what we can do is then, in our for loop, we can call this function here and pass the arguments in. The first argument will be the individual element of the array that we're currently on, right? The array of current array count that we use right down here. The next thing that we can input into it is the current array count, if somebody even wants to use that. And the last thing that we'll put into it is the array itself. So what that does is now we can take our action line out, and then we call map, we'll pass the function in there anonymously. So we're going to define the function as just a function itself and not assign the function a name. In which case, we're going to pass it a parameter which will be the same as current array count. So we can call it anything we want. We'll call it current array item. And then we pass that in, and then we can paste our code back in here from before. Instead of calling it array current array count, we can call it current array item. We can save, and let's see if it still works. And it does. So now, if we want to make it go backwards, we could type prepend and now have CBA. We've separated out the functionality here from our map function. And we can now generalize this to do all sorts of things. And we'll also note here that this is a lot easier to read. In addition to making the map function behave differently, can you also use the map function to list the items from 1 to 3? We're in a very good place now. Everything seems to be working very nicely. We could even take a little bit more liberty and change what we say. We could say, hello. Welcome to our website. We could put in the second one. It's a very nice website. And in the third, we could say, we hope you like it. And now we've got 3 more proper paragraphs. But even so, this is still not a true map function. The reason why is because, as we said in the beginning, a map function takes an array and gives us back an array. So we're doing operations on an array, but we still haven't given back an array. So let's start doing that. So we can make another array called returned array. And over here we can even define it. Returned array equals empty array. So now, if we want to do that, all we have to do is do returned array equals our callback function. And then what we can do is, after our for loop, we can go return returned array. One more thing though, because that's not quite going to work exactly right. We have to make sure here in our returned array that we do it at the current array count. So now we've done that. We want to make sure it works though. The crucial thing up here is this keyword here, return. This tells our map function that when the function's done, the value of the function will be returned array. So what that means is that if I assign a variable to map, like for instance, map result equals map, then whatever map gives us as a result will be saved to map result. Now, this means though also that when we append here, that we're going to have to return something as well. So if we want to return something, we can return something in relation to current array item. Since current array item is a string, let's add another string to it. Or even better, we can add the current array count, which is the second parameter of the function. So we can current array count, we can literally just use this, and because current array item is a string, it's going to convert current array count to a string as well. Now, this brings up an interesting question here, which is that we have this jQuery here displaying the things here and appending them here, but this is what is called in programming a side effect, because it's not what the function's actually doing, and it's not the result of the map. And so even though we're going to let this side effect stay right now, it's not a fundamental part of the map. But what we can do is, at the end of this, we can add to the body, append this map result we can see what happens. So, interestingly enough, we get a 0, hello, welcome to our website. 1, it's a very nice website. 2, we hope you like it. So, what if we updated this a little bit? For instance, what if we put in parentheses our current array account and added 1 to it? Well, now it would be 1, 2, 3. That looks better. And then what if we added a space in between this 2 to make it a little bit more readable? We could even add a period in a space, right? So now it's 1, hello, welcome to our website. 2, it's a very nice website. And 3, we hope you like it. And now we still have these side effects, but we've also acted directly on the data. In what ways can you change the result of map? And now it's time to clean up. There are 2 things that I'd like to clean up. One is this body.append right here. It's really just a side effect. This is important to recognize because this isn't the way we should use map, although we could use it that way. But if we get rid of it, what we can do is, again, we can put our paragraph right here. And put our closing paragraph right here. In the same way, let's delete these other 2 paragraph tags, the opening tag and the closing tag, because we just added 2 others. And there you have it, an authentic map function. The other thing that we should do here is in this for loop, just as a way of being careful, we need to check and be sure that the properties we're adding to this array are ones that actually exist. So we can do array.hasOwnProperty of current array count and then close it down here. If statement here, like the for loop, checks to see that what is inside of its parentheses is true. If it's true, it does what's inside of the curly braces. The array.hasOwnProperty checks to ensure everything that we're adding to this array is something that has come from the array itself and not an ancestor of the array. If you don't know about how inheritance works, it's a whole other topic, but it can be a disaster. hasOwnProperty protects us from that. So now let's take a look. It still works. You wouldn't know the difference. With this last bit of code, you can now take it and do whatever you want with it. The rest is up to you. Now that you've built and used a map function, I leave the final question to you. Which parts are declarative or imperative?